Welcome back, Real Talkers. Well, we are just a few days away from election, and what best guest to have, a lawyer who's been voted as one of Washington's greatest lawyers for the past 30 years. He knows Washington very, very well, inside out, so it's a great honor to have here with me in the studio, Mr. Nathan Lewin from DC.
Nathan Levin.
Nathan Levin. נכון. Mr. Lewin, what air are we breathing a few days before election? What do you think we're going?
Well, I'm hopeful that Be'ezrat Hashem, Donald Trump will win a landslide election in the United States. And that's going to make a big difference in terms of what Israel can do. I personally am a great believer and supporter of Bibi Netanyahu. I represented Netanyahu. He requested me to represent him when they were first talking about accusing him criminally because they said he was being bribed by favorable publicity.
Right.
And I presented the argument on behalf of Netanyahu again to the prosecutor, whose decision it was. But he and his group of almost 30 supporters, the prosecutor, decided to prosecute Netanyahu. It was a really false prosecution.
Yeah.
And now the court here in Israel has told the prosecution, according to the news stories, that they should drop that case.
Exactly.
Because it is ridiculous
right.
to charge a politician with being bribed by getting favorable publicity. Every politician all over the world.
In Italy, they would be all in jail.
Pardon?
In Italy, they would be all in jail.
Well, Italy may have its own standards, but in Israel, they shouldn't be. And unfortunately, my argument was not accepted. But I have been a Netanyahu fan even before then, and I think he has done a very good job and very powerful in terms of making sure that Israel can not only survive, but be victorious. Biyachad nenatzeach.
So a return of a possibility of seeing Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu working together again. Something that could really happen. What do you say to that?
I think that would be magnificent. I would like to see, in addition to Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, I would like to see David Friedman as part of the team.
Right. Because
he was very much involved in efforts that I made in litigation to get the right of anyone born in Jerusalem, an American citizen born in Jerusalem, to get an American passport that says that that person was born in Israel. Because believe it or not, the State Department of the United States kept taking the position that if you were born in Jerusalem, you were born in some international city, which was not part of Israel. And it's only because Congress passed a law that said that an American citizen born in Jerusalem has the right to have Israel in the passport. And I brought a lawsuit to enforce that law, which President Bush had said was interfered with foreign policy. It took 16 years
until Trump
for my daughter and me, my daughter Aliza, who's my law partner, to litigate that case.
Incredible.
We appeared twice in the Supreme Court of the United States. And although 6 justices of the Supreme Court held that Congress could not decide that an American citizen born in Jerusalem was born in Israel, only the president could decide that. But the 6 justices never anticipated
that
the president would be Donald Trump.
Right.
And Donald Trump, at the urging of various people, but also using his own instincts, recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, moved the embassy to Jerusalem, with David Friedman being very much involved in that. And as a result, after much effort, the State Department, under the direction of Pompeo, who was an excellent Secretary of State, had to change the Foreign Affairs Manual to provide that an American citizen born in Jerusalem may have Israel in his or her passport as the place of birth. You would have thought this would be obvious.
Of course.
But
this is major.
It was not done.
But Mr. Lewin, you've been living in Washington for the past more than 50 years.
60 years.
60 years. We always thought that America is our big ally. Where I just feel that where there's you that have been living that, you know, the deep inside, are they really against us?
Well, I have to say, and again, this is a personal opinion, but it derives from following Washington politics and international events over years, that this is basically the fault of a man called Barack Obama.
Barack Hussein Obama, like Trump.
Hussein Obama. Barack Obama decided that there was too close an alliance between the United States and Israel. And when he was elected, he personally, in public statements, made it clear that America did not have a Judeo-Christian tradition, but it was, in his view, equally Muslim Christian. Right. And I think Barack Obama was a disaster in terms of the United States.
Yeah.
And I think he still controls very much of what goes on in the United States.
Right.
Through a man by the name of Joe Biden. And the people around Biden.
Right. So how important, I want people to hear it from you, not from me, how important it is, this voting, this election, and that they should vote the right candidate for Israel.
It is critical. It is life existential, as they say, because Trump, I think, and I hope, will repeat the totally pro-Israel positions he took in his first term. Harris will, I'm sure, be not only personally supportive of Palestinian causes, but she will have around her and the people who make American policy a host of people who are enemies of Israel and who want to see Israel essentially destroyed or obliterated.
Right.
So I think it is an existential duty of every American citizen, certainly those who are Jewish and those who just want to see America survive, to vote for Trump. I supported publicly, I wrote articles supporting Donald Trump in 2016
when no one thought
first
it could
appeared.
Right.
I was invited as an outsider, but just to attend the Republican Jewish Convention, in which all the potential Republican presidential hopefuls appeared. And I remember Donald Trump, who has a very good sense of humor, getting up at that with all the other Republican hopefuls and saying, I'm up here, but I know I don't have any chance of getting your support because I'm not going to ask for your money. I don't need your money. And Trump said that to the Republican Jewish coalition at the original convention, in which all the potential Republican nominees were invited. And he said, I don't have a chance of getting your support because I'm not going to ask for your money.
And it's still...
And the Jews all are accustomed to candidates who want their money.
Right. Fantastic. But I just want to say, I said about anti-Semitism in Washington, and you corrected me before when we spoke. We also have a lot of good friends like the House Speaker Mike Johnson and Ted Cruz. They have been really doing a great job for us. So I must mention them.
Well, these are people who have, I think, America's real interest at heart. They know that America is stronger because of its Middle East ally, Israel.
Yeah.
And they know that opponents of Israel are as often motivated by sheer anti-Semitism as by alleged international politics.
Mr. Lewin, now that I have you here, I'm going to take this chance to ask you also about your incredible career. Just reading about you, it's amazing. And you represented Chabad world headquarters in the litigation case about the books, the famous case, and you represented the Rebbe, basically.
Yes, I did. I mean,
and you won.
I had represented various individuals in Chabad prior to that, but I was not a Lubavitcher Chassid. I'm still not a Chassid. I believe totally that Chabad is the maybe most productive Jewish entity that exists, and that the Rebbe, Zichrono Tzaddik Livracha, was the greatest influencer of current Jewish life.
Which you have met.
I met him, yes, of course I met him, and we discussed the case. I mean, I was asked by Rabbi Krinsky, Admei of the Esrim Shana, who I did not know, but who called me in the middle of the night because other people at Chabad had told him that in terms of getting legal advice on what to do with regard to the fact that books had been taken by a member of his family surreptitiously. They filmed it, they knew that books had been from the library of the previous Rebbe that was brought over from Europe when the previous Rebbe had come, and they were stored downstairs at 770 Eastern Parkway. Very few people had access to it, the Rebbe and his family, but they installed secret cameras to see who had taken these books that were missing. And they discovered that the books were being taken by Barry Garari, by a nephew of the Rebbe. And the question is what to do about it. And when they were seeking some legal advice, somebody who was very influential told Rabbi Krinsky that the best advice would be from this lawyer in Washington, who was not a Lubavitcher Chassid. I mean, I thought highly of Lubavitch, but I was not a Chassid. So in the middle of the night, I got a call from Rabbi Krinsky, whom I had not known, and he told me, we want to know whether we should file a complaint with the police to get an arrest warrant against somebody who has secretly been taking books from the library. And when I asked him some more details, he told me it was a Rebbe's nephew. And I said to him, well, you don't really want to get the police to arrest him. The thing to do is to go to court to stop his sale of books. He had taken books that he was putting on sale, and to declare that the ownership is Chabad's, it's Chabad's books. And that, as a result of that discussion and the fact that he came down to Washington the next day or two with, by the way, I have to say, an annotated page of the Shulchan Aruch that explained that you could go to court if Besdin was not going to give you, a Jewish court was not going to be able to give you the relief that you were seeking. Mm-hmm. And it's clear that Barry Garari would not have listened to a rabbinic court that would have told him to give back the books. And I said, go to court. Where does he live? And Rabbi Krinsky told me he lives in New Jersey. I said, well, that's terrific. Chabad is New York. The defendant lives in New Jersey. We can go to a federal court, which is a much better court. And he agreed that we should do that. And I drafted up the papers, and we filed it in federal court in Brooklyn. And that's how that case began, as a result of the phone call that I received literally at 2 in the morning. I remember being woken up, and who is it? It's Rabbi Krinsky of Chabad, who
How did they not manage to make a chassid out of you in so many years?
Well, they made a very strong supporter of me, but I still, one of the things I report, because I was told that at the time, Lubavitch was a magnificent client because the Rebbe said to them, pay the lawyers. And that was one client which I had no difficulty in collecting for my services because the Rebbe said, pay him. But in addition to that, the Lubavitch Hasidim who knew me or who had become acquainted with me said I should come down to go up to Brooklyn to Crown Heights to spend a Shabbos in Crown Heights,
770.
to go to the Farbrengen, to be there. And when they told that to the Rebbe, I was told that the Rebbe said, Mach nicht a chassid from lawyer. Don't make a chassid out of the lawyer.
Fantastic.
Don't try to do that. So really the first time, apart from conferences that I had with the Rebbe while the litigation was going on, the first time I came up to some celebration in Crown Heights was after we won the case. And at that point, of course, there was great celebration in Crown Heights.
And you represented also Rabashkin.
Later on, I represented Rabashkin. I represented Chabad in a case that went to the Supreme Court over whether a Chabad menorah could be included in the holiday display of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
The city of Pittsburgh included it, and the Jewish lawyers and the American Jewish Congress and their lawyers opposed it because they said it violated separation of church and state. But that was not my view of the First Amendment, and I represented Chabad up to the Supreme Court of the United States, and we won that case and have won several cases since then on the right to put up a menorah. Right now, because of the strong feeling against Jews in the United States, I'm getting requests from Chabad shluchim across the United States who are being given difficulties in putting up a Chabad menorah because of the community attitude regarding Jewish observance.
Right. Do you feel anti-Semitism in America, or it's something that we feel looking at?
Well, I feel anti-Semitism actually every time I open the newspaper or turn on the television and read what's going on.
But when you live there?
When I live in the suburb of Washington, there has been, an occasion or two when walking in the street, there's a neighbor or something that will yell out some anti-Semitic curses, but I have not encountered any physical disability or attack in the suburbs of Washington.
And you go around with your kipa? You're not?
No, I will wear a
hat.
I wear a hat, and I grew up in an age where wearing a kippah, I brought a lawsuit on behalf, a very important lawsuit on behalf of a psychologist in the Air Force who was ordered to remove his kippah. And I brought that lawsuit in Washington. That went up to the Supreme Court of the United States. I lost that case in the Supreme Court, but because there was a legislative effort headed by a very, very important and magnificent congressman called Stephen Solars, Olav Shalom, who died at an unfortunately young age, but he spearheaded a lawsuit, a bill, a law that recognizes the right to wear a neat and conservative article of clothing with a military uniform, and that's now federal law.
So it's approved still now?
It's approved under federal law, although the Supreme Court rejected my claim that a serviceman was entitled to wear it under the Constitution.
Right.
They said the military can have its own rules.
How many cases have you done? You've written half of the history here. Incredible.
Well, I argued 28 cases in the Supreme Court. Not all Jewish cases. Yeah. I also had non-Jewish clients for whom I argued cases in the Supreme Court. But and some of my commercial cases happened to be Jewish clients. The photography store, then called 47th Street Photo, was famous. One that I represented in the Supreme Court, and I won that case, entitling them to bring in what was called gray market material into the United States.
Wow. What do you do when you come here to Israel?
Well, I come to Israel, I enjoy Jerusalem. I mean, now, because of my age, I'm much more limited than I used to. I used to come and scour the newspapers to find interesting things in Jerusalem or elsewhere in Israel. When I used to drive, we would drive to some interesting speech, some interesting performance, some good drasha, some good learning possibility. Right now, I have a grandson who's learning in yeshiva. And
you have a granddaughter in the army.
What?
And you have a granddaughter in the army.
Granddaughter in the army and a grandson who's learning in the Gush. So, I continue to have contact, and I'm trying to arrange someday with my grandson that I will go out to the Gush and enjoy some of the shiurim that they have there.
I'm sure you're wanted all over to speak and to say all your incredible stories, to tell your stories. I mean, especially Chabad, I'm sure it takes you everywhere. You learn how to fabring, right? You know how to do a good drink some.
The longest fabring I've ever had was we traveled to Alaska on a cruise to Alaska, and in Anchorage. It wasn't Anchorage. I forget which city it was in Alaska. Has a very active Chabad rabbi.
Right.
And he invited me to come for Shalosh Seudos and speak at Shalosh Seudos. I didn't realize that in Alaska, Shalosh Seudos is 3 hours till nightfall.
You're right.
So I had to make a long speech.
You're incredible. Incredible. Mr. Lewin, thank you so much for coming here, for telling us the stories. And again, I want to remind everybody to vote the right candidate. I'm not saying this. Mr. Lewin is saying this. A lawyer in Washington who knows very well what he's talking about. So you should listen to him. And I hope to meet you again in Jerusalem in one of your walks. We live not far from each other. And good luck in everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Bezrat Hashem b'yachad nenatzeh.
Amen. Amen. Well, and again, please vote wisely. Thank you so much for listening, and I was inspired. Take care.